The story behind Spielberg's grief and Rob Reiner's shocking loss is one no one expected until now. Steven Spielberg and Rob Reiner, two legends of Hollywood, were not just creative forces behind some of the most unforgettable films of all time, they were also lifelong friends. Their bond went beyond just professional admiration. It was a deep, personal connection rooted in a shared love for storytelling. Spielberg, known for his emotional mastery in films that evoke tension, suspense, and heartfelt drama, was paired with Reiner, who brought a unique warmth and authenticity to his films, making audiences both laugh and cry. Together, they formed a powerful dynamic in the world of cinema, where their creative talents complemented each other in ways that resonated across the silver screen. But what happened next? The loss that would rock Hollywood and shatter the lives of those closest to Rob was something no one could have predicted. In December of 2025, the film world was shaken to its core with the news of Rob Reiner's sudden passing. Spielberg, who had just shared a heartwarming conversation with Rob only 2 months earlier, was left in a state of disbelief. How could someone so full of life, so full of hope and creativity, be gone so suddenly? The joy they had shared just weeks earlier now seemed like a cruel reminder of how fragile life can be. The last time Spielberg saw his friend, it was a joyful occasion. The two filmmakers had been at a private gathering, one filled with the kind of laughter and camaraderie that can only be found between old friends. Rob, beaming with pride, shared the incredible news that his son Nick was finally turning a corner in his battle with addiction. After years of struggle, Nick was back home with the family, recovering and finding his way back to a sense of normalcy. Spielberg recalled the joy in Rob's eyes as they spoke about the future, about the creative projects they both still hoped to bring to life. That night, Spielberg felt the warmth of their shared connection, and for a moment, the weight of their respective legacies seemed to lift in the glow of hope. Yet, just months later, everything would change. The unexpected tragedy that struck Rob's family, something no one could have seen coming, would leave Spielberg grappling with grief and the world left stunned. On December 14, 2025, the unthinkable happened. Rob and Michelle Reiner were gone. It was a loss that reverberated across Hollywood, leaving a hole in the hearts of those who knew them personally and professionally. For Spielberg, the news felt like a punch to the gut. His mind raced back to that moment just weeks before when Rob had been so filled with hope, and now that hope seemed to have vanished in the blink of an eye. Spielberg spoke about the impact of the loss in a short but emotional statement. His voice trembled with sorrow as he expressed how much Rob meant to him, not just as a collaborator, but as a friend. "Rob was more than just a colleague to me," Spielberg said, his tone heavy with grief. "He was a creative partner, a fellow storyteller who shared my love for the craft and the art of cinema. But beyond that, he was a friend, a good friend, someone who always had my back. I can't believe he's gone." His words captured the weight of the loss, a loss not just of a brilliant filmmaker, but of someone who had touched Spielberg's life in a way that few could. Spielberg reflected on Rob's legacy, not just as a filmmaker, but as a man who had the ability to connect with people in a way that few could. He spoke of the warmth and compassion that Rob brought to everything he did, both on and off the screen. "Rob had a gift," Spielberg said. "He was able to tell stories that made people feel something real, something deep. His films weren't just about laughs or tears, they were about connection. He understood what it meant to touch the human soul." Spielberg recalled the films that made Rob a household name: The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Stand By Me, each a timeless classic that touched hearts, and each a reminder of Rob's remarkable ability to capture the emotional core of the human experience. But Spielberg's tribute didn't stop at his professional admiration for Rob. He also shared a deeply personal moment, one that would forever remain etched in his memory. He recalled an evening several years ago at a gathering in Hollywood when he noticed that Rob seemed different. The mood was light, the atmosphere was filled with the joy of old friends reminiscing about the good old days. But Rob stood alone in a corner, his face distant, his eyes weary. Concerned, Spielberg approached his friend and asked if everything was okay. Rob, always a private man, didn't immediately respond, but instead led Spielberg out to the balcony, away from the noise of the party. It was there, under the dim glow of the city lights, that Rob opened up about something he had kept to himself for so long, his son Nick's ongoing struggle with addiction. "It's been a battle, Steven," Rob said quietly, "a battle that I don't know how to win." Spielberg remembered the pain in Rob's voice, the way it cracked as Rob spoke of the years of trying everything he could to help Nick. "We've sent him to the best recovery centers, kept him close, tried to help him through every relapse," Rob continued, his voice heavy with sorrow. "But every time he seems to get better, he falls again. I just don't know how to fix it." Spielberg sat in silence, listening as Rob shared the weight of a father's pain, the fear of losing his son, the helplessness that came with watching someone he loved spiral out of control. That night, Spielberg said, would stay with him forever. It was a moment of raw vulnerability, a moment when he saw the deep pain behind Rob's creative genius. It's one thing to see someone struggle in their art, but it's another thing to witness the struggle behind the scenes in their personal life. Rob wasn't just dealing with the pressures of Hollywood, he was dealing with the most personal, painful thing any parent could face, the fear of losing their child. Years passed, but that conversation never left Spielberg's mind. He often thought of Rob and of Nick and of the battles that had been fought behind closed doors. Then, in October 2025, fate seemed to offer a moment of redemption. At the Governor's Awards, Spielberg saw Rob again, this time radiant, filled with a new sense of peace. Rob shared the news that Nick was doing better, clean, working, and reconnecting with the family. For Spielberg, it was a moment of triumph, a moment when hope had finally won out. Rob looked at peace for the first time in years, and Spielberg couldn't help but feel a sense of joy for his friend. But just 2 months later, everything changed. The news of Rob and Michelle's deaths came as a devastating shock, and Spielberg found himself once again facing the fragility of life. How could this happen, he asked himself, recalling the joy he had seen in Rob's eyes just a month earlier. It felt as though the world had been turned upside down, and the light of hope that had briefly shone was suddenly snuffed out. In the days that followed, Spielberg found himself turning to one of Rob's most beloved films, The Princess Bride. As he watched it, tears filled his eyes, but he found comfort in the timeless lines of the movie. "As you wish," he whispered, a tribute to the deep connection they had shared, both personally and creatively. Spielberg's final tribute to his friend was simple but powerful. "Rest peacefully, my friends. You've left behind a legacy of love, laughter, and creativity that nothing can ever erase." Spielberg's words captured the essence of Rob's impact on the world, a filmmaker who had touched countless lives, not just with his films, but with the kindness and generosity he brought to everyone he met. Rob Reiner's legacy would live on in the hearts of those who had been fortunate enough to know him personally and in the timeless stories that he had created. And as Spielberg reflected on his own journey, on his own connection to Rob, he couldn't help but be reminded of the power of storytelling. Both he and Rob had come from similar backgrounds, shaped by their early experiences and struggles. Spielberg had often spoken about how his restless childhood, his constant moving from place to place, had influenced his ability to observe people, to understand their emotions, and to tell stories that resonated deeply with audiences. Rob, too, had been shaped by his own experiences, by the challenges he had faced in his personal life. And it was through their shared understanding of life's complexities that they had created films that spoke to the universal truths of the human experience. Through their work, Spielberg and Reiner had given the world more than just entertainment. They had given the world the gift of connection. They had shown us what it meant to love, to lose, and to find meaning in the midst of life's most challenging moments. And though Rob Reiner was gone, his legacy would continue to live on in the stories he had told and in the memories of those who had known him best. And as Spielberg reflected on his own journey, on his own connection to Rob, he couldn't help but be reminded of the power of storytelling. Both he and Rob had come from similar backgrounds, shaped by their early experiences and struggles. Spielberg had often spoken about how his restless childhood, his constant moving from place to place, had influenced his ability to observe people, to understand their emotions, and to tell stories that resonated deeply with audiences.
Rob, too, had been shaped by his own experiences, by the challenges he had faced in his personal life. And it was through their shared understanding of life's complexities that they had created films that spoke to the universal truths of the human experience. Through their work, Spielberg and Reiner had given the world more than just entertainment. They had given the world the gift of connection. They had shown us what it meant to love, to lose, and to find meaning in the midst of life's most challenging moments. And though Rob Reiner was gone, his legacy would continue to live on in the stories he had told and in the memories of those who had known him best. And as Spielberg reflected on his own journey, on his own connection to Rob, he couldn't help but be reminded of the power of storytelling. Both he and Rob had come from similar backgrounds, shaped by their early experiences and struggles. Spielberg had often spoken about how his restless childhood, his constant moving from place to place, had influenced his ability to
Observe people, to understand their emotions, and to tell stories that resonated deeply with audiences. Rob, too, had been shaped by his own experiences, by the challenges he had faced in his personal life, and it was through their shared understanding of life's complexities that they had created films that spoke to the universal truths of the human experience. Through their work, Spielberg and Reiner had given the world more than just entertainment. They had given the world the gift of connection. They had shown us what it meant to love, to lose, and to find meaning in the midst of life's most challenging moments. And though Rob Reiner was gone, his legacy would continue to live on in the stories he had told and in the memories of those who had known him best. As Spielberg said in his final tribute, "Rob, you lived with purpose, and we'll remember you forever." And through the films he left behind, Rob Reiner's legacy would continue to shine, a beacon of love, laughter, and the power of storytelling that can unite us all. If this story moved you, share your thoughts and memories in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share to keep these powerful Hollywood stories alive, and we'll see you in the next one.